Good morning, brother. Good morning, AM. We'll kind of let people trickle in and we'll talk about what is going on with the semiconductors. A little bit of an overnight gap down in the NASDAQ. I'll bring it up here momentarily. Good morning, Vic. Morning, Scottish. Yeah, there you go, Dragonheart. Yeah, if you want to trade in the markets, you got to be up early. I'm up at, markets don't open until 8:30 for me, but I'm usually up like 5:30 to 6 a.m., a couple hours before the open, just so you can get ready and do whatever the heck you have to do. Eat, shower, get a little workout in, do something. Bracco, good morning, brother. Nice to see you in here as always. Give me some of your thoughts on what we saw yesterday. Obviously, we all saw the news. We all saw that basically the H20 Nvidia chips, there's going to be $5.5 billion. Let me see if I can pull up this news. Obviously, it took down all semis, which, on one hand made me fairly grateful that I still had some shorts on an SMCI and MU and AVGO. On the flip side, I did try to dip my toes yesterday in CrowdStrike, Uber, and Spotify. And of course, the two that I don't take, Palantir and Netflix. And Netflix was on my radar too, but, I really didn't. I just thought, oh, you know what? Earnings Thursday after hours, so I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. Sure enough, that was a mistake. So yeah, Nvidia expects to take $5.5 billion of charges in fiscal Q1 related to inventory and purchase commitments as a result. So should be interesting. Funny that they got their price target lowered to 150 at Raymond James. I mean, this thing's in a stage 4 downtrend, and they're out here just slightly lowering their price targets. That's why I don't listen to none of that. So small gap down, here's the reality. I don't actually hate the gap down because it's going to start to show us who's going to be the future leaders and who will be the future laggards, right? The best stocks, the stocks that keep getting accumulated, will go green on the day fairly quickly, and the others will just hang out in the red, right? Like it's very unlikely. I mean, I could be wrong, but that Nvidia goes back to 313 today. Could happen, but it's likely that your leaders, they're going to start to poke their head out, a little bit faster, similar to kind of what we saw in Netflix yesterday, right? Netflix doesn't really feel like it's trying to go anywhere. Netflix feels like it's trying to go higher. So, I had this thing on watch at 854 as a UNR. I didn't take it. I had this thing on watch yesterday over this little base. Didn't take it. Back over the 50, didn't take it. And, if this thing can go sideways a little bit, have some good earnings, maybe I'll be buying it over 1,000. Do I have any thoughts on GME? Well, it's back over the 200, which is good. I don't know. The problem is if you're going to load the boat with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's, it's hanging on above the 200, but it's still below the neckline where it broke down and still below the declining 50. So, if this thing can't get back over 92,000 and just hangs out below the declining 50, I don't really want to have too many opinions. Right? Opinions can be dangerous in things that have a declining 50. This thing is kind of just, if you look at Bitcoin, it's kind of just in no man's land right now. It's above a ascending 200. It's below a declining 50. It's below its neckline where it broke down at 92K. I don't really know how many more opinions I'm supposed to have. James, good morning. Yes, Scottish. I don't really know what opinions. This is the question for everybody to see it. So, yeah, I don't know that I have any thoughts on it per se. So we'll see. Obviously, it'd be helpful if Bitcoin were in an uptrend. Bitcoin is effectively leveraged NASDAQ, so it would be helpful if the NASDAQ were in an uptrend. It would be helpful if Bitcoin were in an uptrend. Should we wait a few days after a gap up for an entry? You have a couple options. So you can buy a 5-minute opening range break, which is sometimes what I like to do on earnings gap ups. Sometimes if it gaps up in after hours, I do like to buy over after hours highs. Yeah, gold is an absolute machine. And we were on to gold as it was down here on the 50. And then the other option for earnings gap ups is you have what's called a high volume close, which I learned from Amit. And it's basically you're waiting for the close of day one on that high volume day. And then you're buying it as it's getting back through the close of the high volume day, which is typically your gap up. I'm in Spotify. I like ATGE as well. Has to get over the neckline. This thing has to get over 107 to get rolling. And ideally on some pretty big volume. Thoughts on mineral plays? They're too thin for me, but I see them. They're just too thin. I can't do nothing with them, unfortunately. And for the most part, they're gone, right? I mean, TMC I pulled up in pre-market a few days ago, right? And it's like, look at the massive volume that came in on the way down yesterday. If you bought this thing yesterday, you're super late to the party. It's like we were looking at this thing on Monday, right when this little pop was going on. Right when this little thing had, this little up move. But yeah, I mean, look at the volume that came into this thing yesterday, all effectively selling. So it would need a lot more time to go sideways. It could easily go higher, but not a group for me. I mean, this trades 15 million bucks a day, so it's way too thin. And then again, even like an MP, just completely gave away the entire move of 414. I mean, that's Could go higher, but it would need to clean up, right? I don't like crazy volatility like this. Yeah, Palantir is strong. Palantir strong. It's got this little neckline that it needs to get over. Palantir for me. I would ideally hope for a few more days of sideways. Find some support at the flattening or ascending 50. $98. Yeah, gold's a beast, man. Gold's a beast. I'm sure if you were looking through the watch list last week, Hugh, you'll have noticed, I was talking about gold last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I didn't put it on the list on Friday because, you had 4 days to buy it. What do I think of bull? I think it's just one of the euphoric IPOs that don't matter. Personally, I wouldn't never have been chasing that thing. Now, if you played it because you saw what happened to NMAX, if you played it because you saw what happened to WTF, what's the idea with Spotify? It's been a leader. Spotify's a leading stock. Yes, it's just below the 50 now. But, this thing, when you consider, where this thing bounced when the market had this ugly downturn in April, and then you think about the way it held its lows of March, a lot of stocks did not hold those lows of March. In fact, the semiconductors, for instance, got absolutely rinsed, right? So this just looks like a double bottom and what's called an undercut and rally, right? So you undercut a previous level of support, and then you rally right back through, and then this has got a Netflix kind of look. Does it not? Now look at Netflix, and Spotify's a leader. I mean, I listen to Netflix. I listen to Spotify all day long, effectively. This is the exact same chart, right? Didn't get smoked like the other ones, undercut and rally, put in this little flat base and then just started going yesterday. Yeah, I'm using some scanners on TOS. I use scanners on TOS. I use scanners on DeepView. I use some scanners on FinViz. I want to focus on things that are in the leading groups, leading stocks. I don't know, Scottish. I don't I don't focus on one-day wonders or stocks that I think can just be day trades for a day or two. Because they IPO. Ben, great question. Here's a really easy, free way to do it. Go on FinViz. How do I scan for leading stocks? Go on FinViz, click on groups, and then where it says group, hit the little drop-down box where it says sector. That's what it'll say in there, and then drop it down to where it says industry. And then scroll down and look at 30, 90, and 6-month performance. And you'll notice even for the last year, gold's been your leading sector. 3 months ago, gold was your leading sector. So when something like that, when the market's getting its ass kicked and gold's just pulling back into the ascending 50, pretty good spot to pay attention to it. In the case of comparing stocks that held that March low, do you do that visually one by one or have some kind of spreadsheet? No, I don't have a spreadsheet. I just scan the market, man. I scan through all my scanners like a madman. I literally just look and look and look and look and look at hundreds of charts, right? I can look at a chart and it takes me about 10 seconds to figure out if it looks good or not, right? And that's just you training your eyes, right? And then if you start to notice that a few stocks in a similar group are holding up, then you just start to look for the best ones with the best earnings and sales, because institutions are looking at that kind of thing too. It's called FinViz, FINVIZ. Thanks, Vic, for posting that. And you'll notice these tobacco companies have also been very strong. right? It's like, this thing's right back out to highs effectively after a nasty little shakeout candle where it tried to get people, in right on this candle, shook them all out, and then, held the 50 effectively and just kept going, right? Tried to undercut the 50. And this little 145.30 was the high volume close of the earnings gap up. So you could see how important that level was. It's fairly typical. Guys, no live stream tomorrow either. I'm flying to Florida for a wedding this weekend. So as much as I love you all, I'll be back on Monday. Bros for a short. I mean, I like Bros. I like the company. It depends, right? This thing just held the 200. I mean, if you're going to do it, you want to probably get in as close to the declining 20 or the declining 50 as possible. And then what you'll do is you'll look for, a little intraday setup, where your smaller time frame starting to roll over, and then you'll risk off that moving average. But it looks like this thing's got earnings coming up here pretty soon. So just be cautious of that. Let me see. This thing has earnings on 5-6, 2 weeks, roughly. 2 weeks. They're fairly similar, my sell rules. So one of the things that actually I'm doing right now is if I'm taking a long, for instance, I'm just sizing it down, right? I'm not even doing, 10% portfolio positions right now. I've been telling, the group that, you have to take smaller positions right now and the market has to pull you in. If the market can't pull you in, if the market can't pull you in, then I don't want to continue to add risk on the long side, right? So it's like, okay, you take a 5% position and then you take which is what I did with Uber, Spotify, and CrowdStrike yesterday. And right, then you get the news with Nvidia and it starts to take everything down with it. And then what happens is, effectively all those positions kind of go into the red. But, I was only risking like 3% of a drop, effectively 3% risk on a 5% portfolio position. I mean, you're talking such minuscule size of a loss if I'm wrong. And then I would be looking to add, to that if I'm proven right over time, right? And that's why I like study different intraday, different daily setups so that I can get positioned and pyramid up into a position. MU, definitely a short candidate. I'm already short from 98. So it did look like a little bit of a bear flag. And now obviously we're kind of gapping below that. But I'm in from the earnings gap down day. So, but yeah, it does look like a potential short and it's already rolling over. So yeah, Bill O'Neill will say 8%. And again, it's not 8% of your portfolio. It's 8% of a stock's move. So, considering that like a stop to yesterday's lows on Uber was like 2.5%, that's all I was risking. But I didn't even need to get a 10% position on. And that would have only cost me a quarter, 0.25% on my portfolio. But the market sucks. So why do I even need to go 10%? So I just did 6% on Uber, 5% on CrowdStrike, 5% on Spotify. And then, like I said, the market has to pull me in. So yeah, exactly. From entry price. Yep. So, my losses were going to be very minimal. And then on the flip side of that, I also took a short on MSTR just under 310. So, kind of when the market had that news, even Bitcoin started pulling back a little bit and MSTR, gapping down just a touch overnight, nothing crazy, but, then just using high of day on that short as well. And I do have more shorts open than longs at the moment. Yeah, no, I'm not risking a percent of my portfolio there. So if I put on a 5% of my equity, right? So just hypothetical, you have $100,000 account and you put on a 5% position, you're only buying $5,000 worth of Uber, right? But if your stop on Uber is, call it 3%, right? You're risking 0.15 of your portfolio if you're wrong, right? Something very, very, very minimal. Not to say that I don't want to make Uber a bigger position. I just don't need to take, bigger risk in this market, right? If a stock is really going to go on to work, there's multiple entry tactics, right? You can buy a earnings gap up. You can buy a delayed high volume close. You can buy undercut and rallies. You can buy higher low setups. You can buy flat base breakouts. You can buy high type flags, right? You just have to study them and know what they look like, know what they are. And then, if you're on to a winner, you can pyramid up into a position big time. You don't have to be quick to own it all right away. You don't have to take the entirety of the thing right away. If the SPY crosses 50 MA, can we say we bottomed? Well, let's take a look at the SPY. I mean, if it gets above, we still got to deal a little bit with the 200. Yeah, I mean, we'll be up quite a bit from the lows if we get up there. But I don't want to say that we bottomed. To be honest with you, I don't care too much about the indices. I care more about the follow through of leading stocks. I care about how many stock setups I'm coming across. How many actionable names do I have the next morning, right? If I don't have many actionable names, then I know we're not in a good environment. If I'm seeing things that look like shorts and they're following through the downside, I know we're not in a good environment. And I'm okay shorting too. So I don't really care one way or the other, as long as it's a clean setup that I understand, where I know how to limit risk in real time. Nothing else really matters to me. James, I appreciate you, man. I don't need an assistant, but I love the offer, man. Thank you. A VS, good question. Do I have a max limit across all positions? I never really want to lose more than 1% on any one position, right? So if I take a 10% position, I don't really want to watch it, go down 10% on me. So this is where dealing with something that's tight. If you're buying something and your stop is low of day, you shouldn't be buying something over 10% on the day anyway. So, how low of day stop would equate to a 10% stop and a 1% loss? I don't know. But yeah, never more than 1%. So position sizing is very important. And oftentimes I'm risking more like a 0.5%, sometimes less than that. And again, market conditions will dictate how aggressive I get. If I just bought 3 longs yesterday, even if I did it with super tiny size, if I get stopped out of all 3, that's the market giving me feedback. Right? If 2 of them go on to work and 1 of them stops me out, okay, fine. And then if they set up some more, and then I see more stock setups and more individual leading groups, going higher, I continue to add, right? I continue to buy stocks that are coming out of clean setups, and I manage every single trade for its own risk parameters. Like, I don't ever really think about the entirety of, I've got 10 positions open. Doesn't really matter. Right? I take it one position at a time. And this is where progressive exposure really helps with that mentality, right? You're not really getting more until you're gaining traction on what you already have. And if you can't get traction on your first position and then your second position and your third position, and you've been stopped out of all 3, you're not looking to make back those gains all at once, because obviously you're either 1, not seeing things well, or 2, in a terrible market. Jax, much love, brother. I appreciate you. Nice to see you too. I appreciate all the questions today, guys. You guys came on fire today. Yesterday it was a little bit quieter, but it seems like we got a bunch of people here talking, so that's good. Yeah, so yeah, I had 2 entry tactics for Netflix, and I was bringing them up in the group. So the first one is called a UNR, and it's called an undercut and rally. So effectively, you're looking at the most prior relevant low where then it found support, which would have been on 310. So effectively, I'm looking at 854.24. On that Monday where we had that gap down in reversal, that would have been your entry with a stop at low. So if you would have taken that 854.24 entry, right, you would have been risking 4% on Netflix. So again, 4% on Netflix with a 10% position, right, you would have been risking 0.4. Now, because the market was so crappy, you could have done 5%. And then you would have basically been risking a fifth of 1% of your portfolio. So nothing. The next spot that I thought was pretty relevant was I saw this kind of little neckline and Wednesday's highs. So Wednesday was that huge up day. And then the market has basically just been, if you look at the ES or the NQ, the market's just been inside that huge Wednesday's day. And your leaders, to me, feel like stocks that are breaking out over Wednesday's highs. Stocks that took out Wednesday's highs feel more like leadership to me, right? Because while the market and effectively everything else is hanging out, below Wednesday's highs, the leaders are already moving out above Wednesday's highs. So, maybe something like a Palantir took out Wednesday's highs. Something like Netflix. At first, Hood caught my attention, although it got beaten up yesterday. But, something like Hood, where it took out Wednesday's highs. And if you think about it now, we're basically still right around Wednesday's highs. So, but yeah, it's like stocks that are going to be taking out Wednesday's highs look really good. And again, if you guys are focused on leading groups, and which is why I was kind of bringing up gold names last week, Monday through Thursday, we were focused on names like AGI at the 50 down here. It's just a simple 50 SMA hold in the number one group in the market. We're focused on, what is it? AG? Is it AG? No, AU, sorry, Ashanti Gold. First Majestic, sorry. So AU's another one right against the 50, right? GFI Goldfields, right? Another one right against the 50. Agnico Eagle, AEM, another one. A little undercut and rally of the 50, right? So it's like, this is what happens when you're dealing with leading stocks. And now this thing's gapping up another $5, right? It's like, you get your entry right around, even if you took this thing as it got back to the 10 to 20 at 104, you're up 20 points in 5 days. And again, I was focused on it on Monday, which was the 7th, Tuesday, which was the 8th, and Wednesday, which was the 9th. And you go from you go 20 points in 5 sessions, basically. So, gold. And everybody thinks gold's extended and it keeps going higher. You guys go back to, March 31st when somebody asked me if I thought gold was a parabolic short. And my answer was no. Right? It's like, now again, are these extended? Yeah, these are extended. Now you can't buy them. So if you're not in them, then there's nothing to be done. But if you are in them, congratulations. Yeah, I like TTWO, Judah. And one of the things, too, with this one is it's got this humongous game coming, right? It's got Grand Theft Auto 6, which, like I said before on the other stream, I'm a grown man. I'm going to be playing this game. Guaranteed. This is like childhood memories, dude. Yeah, TTWO looks fantastic. Palantir, very strong. Netflix, very strong. Melly, Crowd. Yeah, I bought Crowd, Spotify yesterday. Of course, I don't take Netflix and Palantir. That's just how that works. Yeah, Meta's been relatively weak. I said it yesterday too, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, like relative weakness yesterday. Hell yeah, Judah. We're going to get online and start playing all the missions. That game is probably going to be insane. It's the fastest grossing $1 billion entertainment property in history. Nothing's ever grossed $1 billion faster. But yeah, Meta was weak. Google all day yesterday, weak. Microsoft weak. And then sure enough, this Nvidia news hits. So I don't really know what to make of it other than, I said it yesterday. They were notably weak. I didn't know what more to do or think about it other than they were weak. But yeah, it was hard to argue. It was hard to argue with its weakness, honestly. And like I said, if the market can't pull me in, I'm not going to get more involved. I'm not going to just keep risking my money in a crappy environment. Like on the flip side, I got short a little bit of MSTR too. So that way I thought, okay, if I get stopped out of MSTR, it means Bitcoin's going up. If Bitcoin's going up, it means that the NASDAQ's going up. If the NASDAQ's going up, that means that my CrowdStrike, my Spotify, and my Uber are also likely going up. So, I was like, shorting a little MSTR overnight was kind of like a hedge too against some of the longs that I had just taken. So it kind of felt like the right thing to do. And it's MSTR is gapping down overnight. Rubrik. Yeah, it bounces off cleanly. This is like a double bottom base right off the 200 with also an undercut and rally. So your first setup on Rubrik is an undercut and rally right at 5109. Then it's trying to make its way to the declining 50. This would probably be a spot if you bought the UNR at 51.65 is where you'd lighten up. And then if it can get back up above the 50 and then just give you another clean setup, I would like hold the remaining shares from down here and then look for another setup. No, I don't. Maybe I can like post it on my Twitter sometime, the ADR script. I don't mind sharing it. But no, it's not like available. OnlyFans subscribers only. Kidding. D-Man, nice to see you, man. It's been a minute. Hope you've been well. I haven't seen you on the streams, but I hope you're doing well. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, ChatGPT, I know, can build out some TOS scanners too. Yeah, I know some people using that as a tool. Will the weakness in the tech sector affect the QQQ? Yes. In fact, it already did, right? You got the gap down in Nvidia quite hard. You got the gap down in Google. You got the gap down in Microsoft. You got a gap down in Tesla, in Meta, another 11 points. And look at your NASDAQ this morning. Your NQ is down 1.75%. So, yes. Yeah, if you go back on the 31st, I explained to it. It had everything to do with cop positioning, right? You had gold for one on March 31st was not extended, right? It wasn't really extended for moving averages. So that's number one. And more importantly than that, gold did not have offsides positioning, meaning it's one thing for people to tell me how much they love gold. It's another thing for everybody on planet Earth to own it, right? So that's the thing. It's like you didn't really have a ton of people who owned it, and you can just see it in cop positioning. It wasn't crowded to the long side. So if it's not crowded to the long side, right, so you have to say to yourself, who are the biggest losers in the world? It's normally retail traders. So if retail traders were piled into gold, then I would be weary because they're all making money, and typically they lose money. So I would be contrarian against the majority. But the problem is that they're selling gold as it's going up. And then on the flip side, they're buying Bitcoin as it's going down. So the biggest losers in the world are buying Bitcoin as it's going down, and it keeps doing what? Going down, or effectively doing nothing. And people keep selling gold on the way up, and gold keeps doing what? Going up. So, eventually people will chase gold. They'll do the exact wrong thing. They'll chase it. They're going to chase gold. And then, once they chase gold and gold gets crowded to the long side, then you'll get some good piece of news for gold, and it can't go higher. Why? Because everybody who can be in is in, and now it can't go higher, right? So that's the problem. And then if you get a piece of bad news for Bitcoin and Bitcoin's been already going down, those people are going to panic and sell. And that's when you're going to get that capitulation to the downside. So, it's mind blowing to me that people keep looking for the highs in gold when it's not even crowded. I mean, guys, Jason Shapiro, a market wizard, talks about this. They don't call him a market wizard for nothing. Jack Schwager wrote about him in his book. Jason Shapiro, Crowded Market Report. I learned that from him. He's an absolute genius when it comes to cop positioning. Again, it's not the end all be all. It's not a guaranteed thing, right? Gold can go down without it being crowded to the long side. But when it does have that turn and you have a bunch of longs piled in there, then it's likely to, have a bunch of longs who want to sell. So, oh man, I love it. I appreciate you, Swamp Gator. I love hearing that. Yeah. Appreciate that. I can, I'm thankful that I can clean up some of the bad habits. Love LED. A few weeks ago, we had like a 4-hour phone conversation, just touching up on about everything. Super good dude. Just talking all things market related. Kind of nuts that there are 4,000 people in here watching. Love you all. You guys are awesome. And thanks for asking questions. You guys totally killed it today on the asking questions. I'm in Uber from yesterday, and I should have bought it sooner with, this kind of UNR setup down at 63. Again, just kind of my mistake. And then as it was breaking back over the 50 yesterday, I bought some very small position using prior day's lows as my stop. So, I'm in 74s, basically 74.13, and I'm using less than a $2 stop loss for my stop. And you could see this thing came right down to that level yesterday and rebounded in the morning. So Netflix, I'm not in. I had 2 spots that I was watching it, and I never bought it. So now with earnings coming up on Thursday after the close, problem is I'll be in Florida for a wedding, so I'll have to deal with it when I get back on Monday. Oh, you meant W, like Wayfair? Is this W as in Wayfair? As what, a short? Yeah, this looks horrible. I hope that's what you were talking about. As a short, I wouldn't touch this thing. COT, not COD. COT, commitment of traders. It's data posted by the CFTC. Thoughts on HIMS for a long? Avoid for now. Right, I bought this thing at 29. It went to 73, and it came all the way back lower than my entry. This is why you always sell some into strength and have sell rules. So I bought this thing at 29 on 121. I sold some at 37 just a few days later, 131. And then I sold some on this parabolic day or this day here in the 60s. And then I got caught in this gap down and closed the rest. So, but yeah, just avoid. There's no real setup here. Yeah, I am. I restarted. I had an old YouTube, but it kind of got unorganized. And so I started another one as Real Simple Ariel, if I'm not mistaken. And I am posting like some shorts in there, and I'm posting, hopefully these streams in the morning in there. So yeah, I'll hopefully get that YouTube cleaned up for anybody. I'm actually live streaming on YouTube right now, and there's literally 0 people from there in here. So yeah, that just goes to show you the whole 3 subs I've got on YouTube right now. I like Geo. I'm a little indifferent about prison stocks, but if the Republicans lock up enough Democrats, then these things should be full. And I'm kidding, joking. I kid. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it looks pretty good, right? You think about the way it washed out in April, it got nowhere near its lows in March. Nowhere near. So, I mean, that's a good thing, right? And if it can take out this little neckline, I've kind of got this 3080 spot, basically 3070 mapped out. So if it can take that out, I think it looks pretty damn good. DG, Dollar General, Judah? Yeah, DG. Well, let's see what Dollar Tree ends up looking like. You know, these DG almost looks a little like Celsius. Yeah, these things are trying to get back over. You know, it's declining 200. So who knows? This also looks like a big stage 1 base for Dollar Tree. I'm not live on YouTube. What? Let me see. Huh. I think I am. At Real Simple Ariel or at, my name. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, there's nobody really there, but. Oh, hell yeah, it is working. What? There we go. Yeah, Groupon. You know, these, there are these like discount retailers. Oh, yeah, Groupon. Oh, yeah, look at that. Maybe a little bit of sideways up here would be sweet. Couple weeks, like a 3 to 5 weeks type pattern would be nice. But these other ones keep catching my eye too, like Ollie. Right? This Ollie just keeps building out near highs, and this thing has been in a steady trend for the longest time. You know, it just goes up, build an ugly long base, goes up, builds an ugly long base, goes up, building another ugly long base. So after ugly long bases, this Ollie is kind of known, this Ollie is kind of known. Hey, a couple people left X to go to YouTube. You guys are awesome. You've also got these grocery names. Kroger is one that's caught my attention. BJ's, which is like, I think they're like a grocery store, if I'm not mistaken. And then you've also got SFM, and this one's been an absolute monster. But again, probably needs a little bit more time, I think, with this ugly gap down on earnings. But I mean, this thing has been just a machine. These grocery stocks are looking sweet. Yeah, structure theme, they look pretty dang good. That's for sure. Yeah, Judah, Zscaler, another one that I saw you mention. I've got just crowd. I see this level in Zscaler. I mean, this thing is whippy, but it's nice to see it back over the 200. Crazy to see that Pan W is now actually the laggard. It's still not even above the 200, but I mean, this thing's got this pretty crystal clear 218 level, right? Over 218 looks pretty damn good. Can I tell you how I enter and how do I scale with an example trade that I did? Well, okay. So the way I enter is this. Look, first of all, you have to have a couple of ways of like what kind of setups you understand. So depending the environment that we're in, do you buy undercut and rallies? Do you buy higher low setups? Do you buy flat base breakouts? Do you buy high type flags? Do you buy moving average undercut and rallies? So you have to have a setup that you understand. And then almost all of my entries, I take on a smaller time frame, like a 5 minute, and I look for, what's called 620 setups. So which I learned from Gil Morales. So effectively, I'm looking for, on a 5 minute chart, two things. One, either a break over prior day high, or one of these little setups where you get your 5-minute chart to do this, right? Where your 6 period EMA crosses back above your 20, right? And honestly, when something is coming right into the open and doing that, I'll buy a 5-minute opening range break. So you get your first 5-minute bar, and then you're buying it as it's taking out your 5-minute first 5-minute highs. And again, I was even late to this party, right? I bought it effectively as that was taking out prior day highs. So 391. It's not so much about nailing your perfect entry. It's about having a thesis in the right market. That's even more important. You're holding nibs from 34. You should be out of this thing. You should have been out of this thing when it lost the 50-day. You should have been out of this thing on 227. I mean, unless you have like super meaningless size that you don't care about. But, when this thing lost the 50-day, should have been out. Stocks below the 50-day, you don't need to hold. Yeah, I'm watching Tesla. The spot that I'm really interested in is 290, right? Tesla has to get back over the 200-day and the 50-day. Looks good. I mean, it's just an inside day with an inside day and an inside day and an inside day, but needs to get over 290. Over 290, I would be much more interested in it. All right, guys. I love you all. I appreciate you guys all for being here. I will see. I won't be here tomorrow, but I will see you guys on Monday. Any questions, you guys can always ask me here on Twitter. If not, I will see you guys on Monday. Much love. I appreciate you all. No, I don't trade the VIX, and if I did, it would be the VXX on a short right now. But I don't. I'm not trying to trade the VIX. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I got to get to the room, and I will see you guys on Monday. Much love. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see you guys in a few days. Thank you, D-Man.